Welcome, welcome, welcome everyone to the Restoring Sacred Culture Across the Americas Convergence. I am so excited and delighted to be here today and to be here with Diane Gribbin. So as you all know, this convergence has been created in a sense to really focalize all of our energies here across the Americas. I'm seeing this as a window of time, specifically from about 2016 to 2025, where we're really in the crosshairs all across the Americas, across Turtle Island, Abya Yala. There are different ways we can look at this. And so I'm really asking the question of everyone, what is sacred culture? How do we restore? How do we bring alive this way of being as humans, that we remember to co-regulate with each other, how to do that, how it is that we co-regulate with the earth, how it is that we have a culture of beauty, of harmony, of a kind of renaissance in a sense. So I'm so excited to be here with you, Diane, because to me, you feel like in this Eco-Sapien series of speakers, you are such an Eco-Sapien. You are what I see as like this kind of next level human. Diane has she's in the HeartWood, it's the HeartWood Healing Center. That's your home,
Yeah,
right?
HeartWood Healing Arts Eco Wellness Center.
Yes. And it's in Canada, outside of Quebec. And it's is it hempcrete and cordwood?
Yeah, we have cordwood masonry walls. We got hempcrete on the inside. We've got everything's reclaimed, bottles and everything. Everything's reclaimed right down to our countertops.
Yeah, so amazing. We were commenting a minute ago too, like that Diane, even her, I was like, do you have green streaks in your hair? And I've seen other pictures of her with this green in her hair. And I'm like, that's cool. I want green streaks. She's like, no, it's just because there's so many trees. It's so green.
The trees are like reflecting back on me.
So you're literally an Eco-Sapien, like you're even like sprouting green out of your hair, apparently. This is what it looks like, people. So seriously though, so Diane, she's a Qigong instructor. She actually trains Qigong instructors. I was just talking to her about that because I know for a lot of us, those of us who are kind of coming more from the spirituality end of things, astrologers, everybody waking up to this kind of more metaphysical and more, sky-based wisdom, sometimes we can get a little caught in not being our bodies. Also, from more of the earth angle, those who are activists and really doing this powerful work on the ground and really diving into these nitty-gritty topics like climate change, or living through the elements of climate change, or even in your personal life going through massive shifts and changes. We need this somatic work. We need the embodiment work. So that's part of what Diane brings as well. And you were a river guide. Can you tell us a little bit more? Because she was a river guide. So she also, like me, I mean, I'm nowhere near as deep into it, but I know for me, loving wild places and loving, like, really deeply connecting with the places where it feels just like the earth herself is just so vibrant, and you as a river guide. So can you tell us a little more about your eco background?
Yeah, for sure. For over 10 years, I guided across the Arctic to pay for 3 different degrees. I used to guide up north, really long wilderness trips, canoeing and sea kayaking. And oh my goodness, I feel like it was a big part, sometimes even living 300 days outside. I feel like it was a big part of my evolution and my melting through to more of me, to more of life, more of my essence, my authentic expression, more life, more love and authenticity. And it's really interesting you're bringing this up, because the professor I met in university, who synchronistically I met, and I ended up kind of shifting from the heart, to ecology and deep ecology and eco-psychology and spiritual education, and eventually I went on to do a master's in environmental science and sustainability. This whole thing, and this whole thread is like personal, from the personal to the planetary, right? Like that health from the personal to the planetary. And I've really, I feel like for me, all of that time being connected and also like disconnecting, right, from my conditioning, and being able to just reconnect to what my nature, to nature, was really big. And I just, that prof was just here last night, Tammy. It's so the we space is alive. We have all these plans of what we want to talk about, but he just dropped off a whole bunch of our new
The
book.
professor.
Yeah, and it's called Paddling Pathways.
You wrote this with your
Reflections.
professor.
Yeah, it's called
That's
Reflections from a
brilliant.
Changing Landscape. And I have an essay in there about animal encounters and about just this, about, melting away of what is in the way of our authentic flow, and what it feels like on the outside when what's in me is coming through and meeting what's trying to meet me from the outside. So it's so interesting. You're already feeling
dive in.
yeah. But there's that. So there is that infuses all my work, that infuses HeartWood Healing Arts. We built this, this eco wellness center. And from here, I have accelerated melt program, and it's also, it's online everywhere. My women's accelerated melt program, which includes my somatic attachment therapy. We have Let Love Win, the women's community, the global community and movement, where we are all melting through to more love and health and life and expression. And then, I teach Qigong, and certified Qigong instructors. Embodiment is huge. We got to have vitality to meet anything, and we need to know how to presence and feel safe in order to increase our capacity to be with what's hard. So that's the triggers, right? Which is my passionate work, is learning to love our triggers. My triggers are trailheads to treasures. And so there's so much we do here at HeartWood, and all of it is infused with my nature as nature, and health from the personal to the planetary. We all have a gift to give, and we just need to melt through our conditioning and open up space for that river. So
absolutely. Wow. Yeah. I mean, I love every single, there's a practice that I use in active dreaming that I have found to be very focusing. It feels to me like a good Gemini to Aries kind of focus, because I'm Gemini moon, Aries ascendant. And it is that you go through the whole process of the dream with yourself or someone else. And then at the very end of it, what you do is you start actually by saying, what is the title of the dream? So you're learning really quickly to like have a really strong, you're bypassing the plotting kind of mind into the intuition, and like bringing the energy all in a focalized way, into what's the dream about. And then when you complete doing all the work, then you end with some kind of a slogan or mantra, that really, again, captures the energy of the kind of healing that you've already enacted as you're working with this dream. So a powerful, like, active statement. And you're so good, clearly, at finding the ways to really encapsulate triggers as trailheads, it's like, those are such potent, powerful words. Or, the planetary, from the personal to the planetary, these are such powerful ways. Or nature as, that we are nature. Like that is one of my deepest understandings. And really, if I were to do another convergence, that would be the focus. It would be the people on the planet. It would be that my earth is my body is my earth. It's like, there's so many ways to say that, but I think we're all kind of really learning that and seeing that and feeling that and living that way. So what I love that you are offering all these levels, and you have this, you say it's a movement and a community. It's an online kind of community and movement of individuals, and it's called Let Love Win. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
Can you tell us about that community, who they are, just a little bit more, so we can see and feel who these beautiful souls are and what happens there?
It's really lovely. It's really like getting that embodied experience of, melting through to wholeness, and home can be fun, and it can become, the things we dread the most, like, everything we're bracing ourselves for that we've already been through, like, what the way that we orient towards others, or what we meet in, our closest relationships, and all of those things that come up that overwhelm us, that we were taught to move away from, and we're taught to disown too, right? A lot of us as little people, when we weren't behaving how grown-ups wanted us to, we were taught no didn't come with love, so it was often like a separation. So it's like, then when we don't like feelings that we're having or experiences we're having, we tend to want to like separate from self. And I think this is where it's like, right, how can we be ambassadors for Mother Nature if we can't,
Yeah.
if we can't own, own and love our own nature? And so a big part of Let Love Win is everything that brings us self-compassion. And, that doesn't mean not ownership of it, right? But it just means like, of course we struggle to find our voice as women, right? Of course we struggle, to turn up the thermostat on abundance or intimacy, or right. Of course we do. We look, behind us at the women that came before us, or the conditioning that we've received, or what even felt safe in a nervous system as expression, right? And so it's like, of course, it's not easy to just give ourselves permission to be ourselves, express ourselves, and offer our gifts. We're going to meet all of these little things along the way. And especially every time we meet a block, which is usually beautifully illuminated by feeling triggered, right?
Yes.
So those are our trailheads, right? That's a growth edge, or that's like, I'm feeling out of my comfort zone. And it's almost always about what I've been through or what the people before me have been through, then it really is about the actual situation. So it's really, so, and how do we do that? We do that together because, fear is one of those emotions that is really difficult to move through without support. I am so amazed at the intelligence of our humanity, like intelligence of our system. We know how to dissociate to protect ourselves. We know how to create adaptations, coming from difficult situations, especially as little people, but we also know how to melt those and come back home naturally. And when love as a witness is present, that just happens. It's like all the little aspects of us are waiting to come home, and triggers are how they communicate, and so once we get to presence to each aspect that's, holding us back, but to try to keep us safe in some outdated way, instead of not wanting that part of ourselves, we learn to be with it, not become it, not agree with it, but really learn to be with it. And then that's how it melts home. So we do that through, somatic work. We do that through feminine, masculine balance. We do that through intergenerational trauma. We dive into boundaries, right? So we have all these different themes that we move through. And part of it too is my nature as nature, planet me, planet Earth. And so, we can become the same way we kind of avoid what's unconsciously, we can only really move forward as much as our unconscious is ready for. So we don't know what's holding us back. We think we know. We have our narratives, but then when we dive into it, it's usually something else, right? That we don't know about. So there's a lot of presencing. We do it together, and it's just so important that we can love ourselves, right, all the way home. So we have movement. We've got, and we'd have it all as tea time, right? It's a tea time sharing circle.
I love that.
Women of Heart guest speakers from all over the world to come in and teach us tools and help us along the way. So it's really vast, but it's really simple. Together we are melting through, and together we're learning how to keep our hearts open in these crazy times, and keep our hearts open and increase our capacity to be with what's hard. That's kind of key. So there's a lot there, and we dive deeper into it in the MELT program. But the women's community, we even have 15 minutes of freeform movement every Monday.
That's so good. Yeah, that's so important. That's so essential. Yeah, that's amazing. So with that, so you're doing all these different pieces. When I've been asking everyone this question, this kind of brings it again to the personal, because I want to do the, personal and planetary and global. So micro, macro, as within, so without. So for you, the question I keep asking is, with the Pluto return here in the US and with Pluto and Capricorn for all these years, we all know that this moment we're in is about composting, our societal frameworks, institutions, cultures, right? So we are needing to earth, to rebirth, or to surface, or to bring alive new ways of doing community, of and also I think and so you're creating that, you're creating kind of a new cultural frame in a sense. And with that, I feel a lot about sacred culture or reverential culture. I know that when I grew up in a spiritual tradition that didn't work for me in a lot of ways, but there were moments of numinous moments of being deeply connected to the land and to this spiritual tradition that I really rooted into. And when I started spending time in doing land defense work as an ally with indigenous communities, I was privileged to be, part of different, powwows and temazcals, different kinds of ceremonial contexts where I got to experience human beings who had a long lineage of culture that was deeply wedded to the land and an experience of it being alive, conscious, sacred.
Mhm.
And so part of my vision that I got a year ago with the Turtle Island Reborn vision, because Turtle Island is an indigenous for some tribes, and it's become more of a common, as I'm sure you know, idea that North America is the back of a turtle. And for me as a bioregionalist, I see that as a way to tie us together. But through this, I really saw in this vision, it was that part of what I was supposed to be helping surface was a new sacred culture, like this hearth fire where we come together and people take embers from that fire and they seed this sacred culture in different locations. And so I've been asking people, first of all, just personally, what, if you can remember, what was one of your first experiences of the sacred or of spirit when you were younger, whenever? And I love that the light is shining on your face right now. When like by yourself, first of all, because I do think part of the journey is really coming home to the self and then also communal. So what was your first experience, maybe out in nature or of the sacred, of spirit, that you can recall?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. Yeah, I had I've actually thought about this and felt into this a lot in university, when I switched, out of that major into cardiac rehab, and my levels of the heart were going deeper and deeper, deeper. And I, went into the wrong office and met this professor who I just, who have the showed the book, right? So, and it really came down to this moment where I was going to tell this coronary prof that I'm not going to do grad school with you. And it was like, I knew it was going to be a difficult conversation, but it was becoming clear to me, even though that seemed to be all of the gravity was going in that direction, and I didn't know what I was going to do. So that's like the feminine of like stepping into the unknown and just saying yes.
Wow.
And being able to be sit in the fire of, no plan, no, just not knowing, and increasing my capacity to be with that at a young age when everyone else was like trying to nail down what they're doing, right?
How old were you?
I was 20, 21 maybe. So it's like my last semester of my last year of university. And so this is when you're, and especially in where I'm in North America, it's like everyone's trying to, applying to everything, right? Even if they're not interested in it, they want to know what they're doing. That's the culture we're in. So I had just gathered all my courage to walk in and tell this man, I'm not doing it, and I knew there was going to be this really difficult conversation. And I walked into the wrong office, and I saw these beautiful pictures of canoes and students and animals. And I started kind of snooping around, not on purpose, but it was an empty office. And then I heard someone say, "Can I help you?" And it was this prof was behind his door, writing on his calendar. And I said, "I'm so sorry. Like, I'd love your photos." And instead of having that conversation with my coronary prof, I had a 2-hour deep connection with this man that I never met, who I wandered into the wrong office. And this is like the power of the yes, right? Just starting to say yes and take that step off. Suddenly you're stepping into flow, right? And so he had said, I just had someone drop my experiential education class. I have one spot. I'd love you to take it if you want to take it as an elective, but you need to drop the form off by morning. And so this is a big thing. It meant if I was dropping statistics, I'm not going to grad school, no grad schools, right? So it was huge. And I decided, yes, I would take it. And it was through him that I ended up getting into a practicum to guide up north. I met my husband up there. Like it just showed me on this completely different, which was a big part of my awakening, was, all of that time in beautiful wild spaces. And of course we have that everywhere, and we have that within.
Yes.
But it helped my wild heart to be
Yes.
able to come forth. So on one of my first, canoe trips as a younger person, in my teens, I can feel now, looking backwards, this thread, right? And I remember at the end of a portage, and I'm on the traditional lands of Algonquin here, and this trip was in a park called Algonquin Park. We were I was taking little kids across this portage, and I got to the other end by myself in this canoe. It was the first time that I saw a moose in the wild, and it was eating weeds. It came closer and closer and closer, and then when it heard me, break a stick or something, it lifted its head, and in that afternoon sun, every drop of water was illuminated, coming down from its incredible rack. And it was in that course, we wrote an environmental autobiography. And that's one of my first moments that I really remember, sort of losing track of me and moose and land. And I just felt complete interconnection. And that's what that essay is about, actually, through animal encounters. But so that was that aloneness in the wild was, and I think we can cultivate that, with embodiment and presencing, which is what I try to give everyone now. Is like, here's how you do that right now in 15 minutes, to feel safe and to feel like your true self. But at that time, I didn't know about embodiment, or I didn't have any tools or practices, right? So that was my experience of oneness.
Oh, that's beautiful. There's so many things about that. I think when we are privileged to have experiences out in nature and with a guide, in a context that actually brings it alive in that kind of way, and then we get to lead others through that, that's so beneficial. And for people who don't have that, because nature really, I think we can probably agree, nature is naturally irregular. Nature, like when we have those experiences, it helps us to heal. And so, to have those tools, whether a person who's in your circles or not have access, is really, because then they're accessing that in their human heart and nature. That's really beautiful.
Yeah.
But I love that experience of the sacred, all of it, because you're starting with when life starts to, you start to have those miracles and synchronicities because you're moving into that feminine unknown. Yeah, I love that. And then what happens? It's such a great story. And then also the actual numinous experience out in the wild in that encounter. And yeah, so many of us have had that, the encounters with animals, like just so close to the heart when we have those experiences. So that's your experience, well, kind of with an individual in a nature. What about having an experience of the sacred, a really deep experience of the sacred in a kind of a ceremonial context with other humans, a communal context? When do you remember having that?
All the time. I'm living it, right? Because I say a lot about the we space, right? But every time intentionally, I open a space where we are giving ourselves permission to soften. That's the feminine, right? So, and in Qigong, right, it's like we can't flow when we're tight, right? And so we spend so much of our lives contracted, right? We spend a lot of our lives up here, especially as we get older. So, we need to intentionally sink our energy, sink our attention, our awareness down, like back down in. The heart is the ultimate integrator, right, of sky and earth. So, I always open, right, with like lighting a candle, doing some somatic work, like coming into our bodies, right? And then when we open a sacred space, right, even if it's like, right, we have like the tea time sharing circles in my community. Sometimes, what I'd really like to grow is practices, intentional practices of the we space. So like, you and I would get together, say hi, but then we drop in intentionally and say, right now, like once we feel right now, I feel this in my body, right now.
Oh, that's so nice.
I'm aware of the fact that my jaw is tight, right? And we just stay in the moment. These, we space practices, it's almost like meditation together, or when we come together, even like this beautiful offering you're making, when we come together with shared intention, and our hearts are open, right? It's like the cosmos, the creator, our essence, like everything can come together and bubble up and through. And sometimes, whatever's trying to come through is the spaciousness is sensed, and it's going to push up and bring to the surface anything that needs to be met and melted and integrated. So it's not always, right? That's what meditation is. Sometimes I'm going to sit down and I'm just going to feel and witness a lot of stuff. That's a beautiful meditation, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And so, so we space practices have been like intentional we space practices. So dropping in together to just presence with love, have been some of the most profound intuitions, knowings, messages, new ideas, always just reinforcing and like, validating my excitement and trust in, our interconnected intelligence. I think it's so important to know that it's not outside of you or me. It's all in us to give. And when we are able to really, presence and soften and open, especially at the heart center, right? You're just like,
I keep wanting to breathe more when you're talking. I'm like, okay. Yeah.
We can just flow, right? It's like we just need to melt just enough to make a little bit of space as we feel safe, and then that flow can increase and increase until we're moved by it, so it's not my thing or your thing, it's just what is needed, what's most needed, right? I'm having that experience all the time.
That's so beautiful.
Just by dropping in intentionally, somatically, with a shared openness to meet and melt whatever's needed, and big ideas have come out of that. Our feminine climate renaissance retreat that we just did, that's a part of our community. We dive into earth self-care, earth care, and exactly how being an ambassador for me, melting all my own inner patriarchy and everywhere,
that's so powerful. That's part of when we were talking about what we might talk about today, right? Because we both knew that it was going to be whatever wanted to arise. And I love it when the conversations can work that way. We did talk about, one of the potential titles or topics was the somatics of climate change, because I do find that to be so unique in what you're doing. And when you talked about the climate renaissance, like that tea time and actually bringing women together to talk about it, to explore what's coming up. I just feel like those spaces are so rare. And I love that so much. I know, especially for friends and people who are living out west in the areas, in California and other places and all across the globe, really, we've got different expressions of this, but I know specifically, I feel that a lot in New Mexico, my friends there, that working through and healing and expressing grief around or navigating, the real actual lived experienced impact is huge. So how do you see that? So for a listener who's who's tuning in and experiencing maybe a beloved place that is changing, or maybe they're looking at the global picture and feeling concerned about their grandchildren, what are some ways that how do you see the somatic work helping us navigate climate change?
Yeah, beautiful question. Yeah, I think it brings up something really important too, is what in the the spirit of like self-care, earth care, and that the connection between my ability to receive and nurture and be with what's hard in me is going to impact my response to how I can be of benefit or be moved into service outside of me when I meet something overwhelming. And I think this is such an important topic, right? Because my own nervous system response which is important to get to know, right? Like when you feel flooded, do you kind of freeze up, or go or kind of check out on topics, kind of feel numb, get depressed, like, just kind of can't take a step towards that or can't hear about that.
Yeah.
There's no right, and without judgment, with loving, witnessing presence to self, to planet you, just growing awareness around what is my response to trauma, right? Or grief. What is my response to a trigger? Do I move away from the problem? Do I move away from a feeling? Do I move away from someone else with a big feeling, right?
Yes.
It's so important to know. Am I going into fight, right? Instead of freeze? Do I get, do I amplify things? Do I get retaliatory? Do I want to like get into it? Do I feel more like kind of like shame and blaming them that are doing the stuff, not so much, right? That's othering, right? That's an adaptation too. That is a beautiful adaptation. And yet it's not going to be that effective because nobody can learn when emotions are high. We're not able to educate anyone, not our children, not our partners, not ourselves, when there's a harshness, because we're designed to shut down. So that's okay. We're just noticing that too, right? Do I get ready to fight, right? As an adaptation, or do I flee the scene? Am I like, I'm out of here. I'm not having this conversation. Like I am driving away from this argument and I don't even know where I'm going,
Right.
Like, am I burying my head in the sand? Like, am I just trying to get away from it? Right. And that includes keeping yourself really busy. Whatever it is, you're up and you're out and you're exercising, you're doing things, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But if it's coming from a fear-based place or response, that's really important to notice, not to fix, just to notice. And then there's fawning, right? Which is like, I just want to belong and I don't want to rock the boat and I don't want conflict. And this is
I'm going to shape shift myself around whatever it is, but I'm not really there.
Who do I need to become
to
not feel disconnected, right? And so these are such important, so I'm just going to agree with you, even though my whole body's like, no, and so what we've learned is that we have these nervous system responses, sometimes combinations of them, right? But it's really important to with love, to start to grow awareness around what do I do? Because what you're going to notice is that, if I can't be with my own emotions, it's going to be really hard for me to be with yours, right? And what it points us to is where we're separating. It's like, where am I separating from what just is? Where am I separating from myself? Where am I saying no to whatever it is, right? And whereas acceptance, and I always say surrender is not giving up, witnessing is not agreeing, right? Yes to love and no to your opinion, right? We don't have to be, evolution doesn't work that way, right? It's both. And so, all of this to say, knowing your own nervous system responses is really important when we talk about climate, because what we know is talking about climate is pivotal in change. And yet what we also know is we don't like to talk about climate. Like research shows that we don't like to talk about it. So a lot of these newer initiatives and what we're doing in Let Love Win is we call it Talk Climate. Like I was just part of climate, right? And it's just practicing, right? Because it's starting to grow awareness around my nervous system reaction, because if I can be with that and love that all the way home, and feel grieve with you, or be angry with together, just it's like kicking a soccer ball, right? It's like all those feelings have a trajectory, but you know what, once we feel it to heal it, and then we're actually softer and open to be moved into heart-guided action instead of moving from fear-based action, which is just not as efficient or effective. So I really think it's so important to talk climate, and it's so important to, even if it's just 5 minutes, to love yourself enough to be with whatever is bubbling up, with love, to talk about it with other people. and to just be aware that it might be really heavy on your heart and really important to you. And it feels so good to start talking about it, right? It
Yeah.
feels so good to start talking about it. And we're not here to convince people at this point. That's not, I just talked to a really beautiful author that we just did a live with, and she really made it clear, because some of the women were saying, well, how do I convince, or how do I, my family, and oh no,
Right.
no, we're not doing that anymore. Like,
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. No.
you just gotta find that one person at work who cares, and just talk to them about it, or you gotta find that one person that, we'll talk through whatever. Electric cars in Canada, transport is important because there's a lot of driving in a big country, and we know that that makes a big difference here. In different countries, it's different things that have the highest impact. And so it's like, what are the barriers, right? Just starting to talk, for me, even talking to my parents,
Mm,
it opens up. It's not with no attachment to outcome. It's for planet you,
yeah.
right? Integrity.
Yeah.
You're trying to change people, and some of that fawning response is like, well, how can I talk about my grief over climate change when I don't know, I'm still wearing a coat, that's ultimately
Right.
plastic based, right? So we have to. This is horizontal hierarchy. We really need to just start talking about it, and that's where the baby steps, the solutions, and actually just becomes obvious what you're supposed to do once there's
Yeah.
a friction point with it, right? For me, once I really was like, whoo, okay, I grieved, I felt it all, I knew, how can I even talk about this? I was angry as a 20 something year old, and I
Yeah.
thought, this doesn't work, being angry at people about it,
No.
and so where can I change me, right?
Mm,
What can I do to feel like I'm coming into alignment? And
yeah.
during my master's, it really empowered me to realize that, like, anyone, we don't stop getting ready to get ready. We can just do what we absolutely can do, right? We can do all the
Mm,
little things that matter. And they matter a lot, whether
they
it's
matter
like
a lot.
shopping locally, or where is your food sourced from? Oh my gosh, it just, the list goes on and on, right? It's like, are you going to get on a list for an electric car? Or
Mm.
what can you do? Can you grow some of your own food on your balcony? It's not hard. Plants want to grow, like
Right.
irresistible piece of
Yeah.
something fun that would
Yes.
make you feel good, that's good for the planet, that you're not doing, that you might not even know about because you're not talking about it, right? Because you're
Right.
going to talk about it.
Or you're not in contact with other people who are doing things and modeling. That's why I want to do this thing. I want people to see the possibilities because they don't even see what's
Oh
possible.
yeah,
Right.
I never, knew that I could build a house with my hands, and friends and grandparents and
Oh
my
my
sweat
gosh.
machine.
Yeah. Amazing.
And like, I didn't know that, right? I started
Right.
hanging out with people that were just trying things, where I was from a culture of, you got to be an expert before you take one step,
Right.
so hard because we only learn by failing. Like, our best, that's how we're designed. We're designed as little people to face plant and laugh and get up and try.
I
It's
love
not like,
that.
I guess I'm not made for walking, like,
Yeah, right. I love that.
we learn by just trying stuff,
Yeah.
yeah, same with the garden. I feel like it's such a good metaphor. It's like my garden, right? I have all this, there's beautiful food coming out of it, and hardly any time to take care of it, but I plant
Yeah.
seeds. It's still, it's still a learning experience every year. And it gives you that trust in nature and abundance, right? That, and I always learn something new. And it's not perfect. It's not whoever's idea of perfect, right? It's like the
Yeah.
raspberry patch is a mess, but I got lots of jars of raspberries. Buckets
Yeah.
of raspberries. We have
Right.
lots of animals enjoying them. So it's really like, it's just permission. It's permission to
Permission.
say yes to just trying something, out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Driving outside of your lane is how you learn, right? And maybe you can only drive outside of your lane for 5 minutes. Maybe you can only have a
Right.
conversation for two. It's okay. Next week it's gonna be 10 minutes, then a half an hour. That's how we increase our capacity for discomfort. And that's how evolution happens, right?
Yes. And I think what's key is someone who tends to do the flight or the fawn more. I either leave my body or I both are kind of leaving my body
Mhm.
or abandon myself. Like that's how I've historically done it. Those have been my two.
Yeah.
I think that there's also, when we take those risks, a lot of times we'll hear people say, extend beyond your comfort zone. And the
Oh.
problem is that many of us have extended beyond our comfort zone and we leave our bodies anyway. We're like, just keep doing it, right? So it's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
do it. So what you're saying is do the things, move outside your comfort zone with these tools. So you're doing it with that softened heart. So you're doing that present in the body. So you're doing that with the tools you need to maintain contact with self and other while you're extending yourself, right? I think that's really important,
Oh my gosh, we
right?
can't take a single step without safety, right? And
Right.
we have to understand that our response to things like climate, or the horrible news, right? Like
Mhm.
it's frightening to be able to really feel things when we maybe were raised not to, or actually
Yes.
feeling big things as a little person resulted in disconnect, from our
Yeah,
caregivers, or
definitely.
isolation or separation. So we have to be really tender.
Yeah.
And we got to be our own. Jamie and you and I were just talking about this. Like it's a lot of inner parenting, and maybe we didn't have, you know, the mother, the nurturing mother archetype, but we all know it.
Yeah.
So
We all
it's
know
like,
it.
how can I give what I didn't get? How can I give me
Yeah.
what I didn't get? Right? How can, when that terrified little part of me comes up and says, no, 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 it's not safe. We gotta check out, or we got to agree to belong, or we can't risk the disconnect, or we got to fight this one out. These are all beautiful adaptations that we needed once.
Yeah.
And we got to really, I would call it practicing the pause. Like when
Yeah.
you're starting to feel flooded, that's not when you push yourself out of your comfort zone. When you're starting to feel flooded, that's when you say, can we continue this conversation later? I'm starting to feel overwhelmed, especially if it feels urgent to get your point across. That's the best. That's a marker. That's your flag that you
Yes.
need to give yourself a moment. And that's, as simple as, because we talked about some practical things, like as simple as, I'm going to call it self-focus, and your North Star is to stay connected to you
Yeah.
through all of it. That's your number one priority, right? So we're
Mhm.
starting to notice where we first disconnect from self, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, maybe I'm going to ask for, maybe I'm, instead of just taking off, I'm going to say, I need to walk, but I'll be back. That's really important, to say,
Yeah.
continue
Yeah.
with me, or,
Yeah.
we got to be able to set boundaries, and yet we're not hiding. So it's like that middle ground. And the somatics are so important, right? So maybe you're just gonna and there's really practical things, like just like one hand squeezing under armpit and one hand squeezing your shoulder, if
Mm.
tactile,
Hmm.
learning yourself, like, is it touch, is it
Mhm.
or feeling my back against the wall and knowing that the wall's got me. I'm just doing
Yeah.
something in my body, because you're going out, right?
Mhm.
And then you're gonna lose conscious control over the situation. It's not you're
Yeah.
what you don't want. So you want to stay in. And it's just a learning journey, right?
Yeah.
And it's about loving ourselves through those hard moments, right? If I can love myself all the way through a terrifying feeling,
Yes.
that's a big embodied experience that I have to build trust for next time. So I like to, really bring people in, like, their full senses, get to know what your senses are, like, what is it visual, if I'm going to light, this beautiful candle, and remind myself that my divine current, is always shining through me, no matter what I've accomplished or haven't accomplished, that like nothing can touch this light, right?
I love that.
Every time I melt through to essence with a client, this light is perfectly intact. Right? It's like
Yes.
never
Yes.
okay. It's always, is it time? So that, maybe it's the visual of like, maybe it's smell, right? I have brought this lemon ginger tea. I made this mug, that it's in to feel my hands warm. I'm just gonna do something little that brings me calm or pleasure. Just that little yes of like, I'm gonna press pause and I'm gonna just, have this one sip of tea before I answer you. Because
Yes, right.
I feel like I'm with you, or I feel like I'm in, nervous system response, I'm in lizard brain. no one's going to learn anything, right? And
Yeah.
I gotta first, it's all inner focus. I just have to take care of me.
Mm.
Feel my feet on the ground,
Mm.
take a nice deep breath to my belly, take in the smells, right? Just figure out what's your super sense, because we're actually, we're disconnecting, right? We're going up into our mind, our stories, our files. And any file you access from lizard brain, it's not gonna bring you it's not gonna bring you to resolution,
Mhm.
a heart guided action forward. It doesn't want
Yeah,
connection and solution, it wants
it doesn't.
safety.
I want safety. Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, by fighting, well, all the things. Yeah.
Yeah, it has access to, all the only, like, it can only access all the horrible things,
Yeah.
it's never, so it's all about bridging in
Yeah.
me, bridging in you, and then we're bridging outwardly, right?
Yeah.
And those melting moments are just really about connecting to truth. It's not
Yeah.
about, we're just finally, soft enough to experience our actual nature.
Wow. Our actual nature, right? Yeah, that's so beautiful. And I love what you're saying, because I feel like this is something many people experienced during COVID. Yeah, we all had distinct experiences, but I've heard this and seen this a lot where where we may I had this experience. It's like I have always needed a lot of alone time. Maybe
Mhm.
because I had a big family, maybe because I hadn't worked through some of the, really repressed emotions, a lot of things I feel,
Mhm.
I'm still working through a lot. And so it's caused me to need to have a lot of space so I can just maintain, a sense of sovereignty and separation.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so during COVID, that was a huge thing where, I think for myself and many others, it was like, okay, what tools can I use so that I can actually more quickly and easily connect to the self and then come back to be with you, the
Yeah.
children or the partner or the whoever's in our close proximity. Because a lot
Mhm.
of us were close to other people in a way that felt a little bit trapping sometimes if we're
Yeah.
really accustomed to being alone. It's like, oh my gosh, of course other people had the opposite experience, but in this particular thing, what I love about what you're talking about is that it really is learning the tools to return to the self much more regularly, so that then we can be in connection with others, and we don't need to like go on a retreat to Hawaii to like
Mhm.
function,
Mhm.
because I think some of us, I've needed to go really far away from where I'm at physically, Gemini moon, Sagittarius, Aries,
Right.
right? But
Yeah.
to learn to actually do it here, right now, that's next level. That's, I think, where many of us are
Oh
learning.
my goodness. Yeah, this is such a beautiful point. And also that concept that we have of what we need to feel like ourselves
Yeah,
is another example, right? Of that unintegrated yang energy on the planet, of like, it's somewhere else, it's far away,
yeah,
it's a long time, it's like, when, honestly, right, it's already in me, and it's about my capacity to stay connected to self so that I can access that flow, rejuvenate, to overflow, and then I'm ready to be present with you, right? And it's, because it's almost glorified, exhaustion and overwork and all of it,
right.
is, and so yeah, it's almost like we've got to stop our lives to have permission to rest, right? We've
Yeah,
got to, and because I'm orienting to you, or especially as women, right? It's like, oh, we've just been modeled, yeah, I mean, this deeper self-care, that it's like somehow selfish when nothing else makes sense. Everything else is a dead end of resentment and burnout. So how
yep.
can I
Thank you. You're
communicate
so
with
clear.
you?
It's just like, yeah,
How can
I
I
hear
be
you.
of service if I can't listen to me? So what I challenge people to do is, and it's challenge by choice, right? It's baby steps, and those to massive shifts, right? Rather than forcing ourselves to be way out of our comfort zone. We need what we need. We got to stop pretending we don't need what we need, right?
Yeah,
We got to ask ourselves really simple questions, like, it's so easy to put it on someone else. It's so easy to let that urgency go up and out.
yeah,
Something else needs to change. Someone else needs to change. Somebody's got to do something. Someone's making me feel. That's just protective adaptation.
Yeah.
And it needs, so what we just gotta bring it home, notice that we're going after others, or we're trying to blow off that steam somewhere. We gotta self-focus and be with ourselves, and love ourselves and stay connected to ourselves through it. And we do need little, tricks. So we need to maybe squeeze ourselves. We need to maybe smell something. We got to feel our feet on the ground and increase our capacity to be with. Maybe we're going to call a friend who's familiar, not going to give us advice, not going to, tell us what to do or talk us out of it, but just be able to be a loving witness. I know someone that does this work, and it's amazing, where she really includes the animal body. So, I would call you because you understand this work, and I'd say, Tammy, permission to vent, because I know I shouldn't talk to, I can't talk to my husband right now. I can't talk to my kids right now. I can't, and you'll say, oh, not a good time. But you always ask permission, right?
Yes.
We're doing that in my family now. It's like,
That's right.
We talk about this, right? Permission to vent, and you say, sure. And I'll say, this is my animal body. It could be all lies, it's like, but I got to get this out. And it's just like, I feel so whatever it is. These are self fragments that, when have you felt, right? And I'll be able to ask myself, when have I felt like this before? Right? How old do I feel?
Wow.
It's familiar, right? And that's tender. And I'm not going to say, oh, I want to get rid of that. I'm going to say, oh my goodness, okay, of course I feel this way. It's very familiar. I don't feel heard or listened to. I don't feel appreciated, or whatever it is. And maybe it's easier to find. It often is. That's why we do this in a program. Is because the circuitry is increased. Witnessing, there's alchemy, right? So not as a, and it's everybody's story, and especially women, right? So really start to feel not alone in it. We just have to learn how to be with it. And the only way is through. I know that from my personal experience and from years of this work, right?
Totally. I have a question as you're speaking, because I so resonate with everything you're saying. And I think and as you're saying it, it just feels like, I feel like the energy behind what you're saying is, of course it's this way. Of course, this is how it is, because you've been practicing this with groups of women, and you've come to this, it feels like, very organically. And sometimes the questions I have are, when I work with people who are in a situation that is kind of survival oriented, do you know what I mean? Like, I mean, I'll even think about and say, one of the speakers we have in this series, who's just an amazing human and soul. She's an Indigenous elder, and she's in the Black Hills, and she's been really fighting for protection for that land for a very long time. She's just gone through a tremendous amount, like a lot of people are with COVID. A lot of, and when and my friends who are Native, who are still in the communities where they were born, they're immersed in something, courageously immersed in a context where there's just a lot that they're facing, that, intergenerational trauma, and they're in that body, in that space. And, I felt that too when I come home to a rural, it's a different kind of trauma, but it's very red state, very rural, very a particular way of being. Do you feel like, do you work with women or individuals who are in these kinds of very kind of extreme situations? And do you feel the same tools work?
I do. And actually my background is like, I worked in a lot of northern communities, and personally, it was really a deep part of my work years ago was with Indigenous youth at risk in Dene communities and small communities, sometimes fly-in communities, to work on reconnecting youth to elders. I put together a program where we took Dene youth and elders on a traditional route down a northern river, and
did you say
Dene? Yeah,
because you have Dene up there. I remember when I realized that, I was like, holy, that's amazing.
Oh,
You have to name.
yeah, how the Naha, this is on a river I guided, like 30, 40 times, the Nahanni River in the Northwest Territories of Canada.
Yeah.
Has like a waterfall twice the height of Niagara. So you fly in above and then we paddle down through the canyons. And I
Uh-oh, you're cutting out. Oh, you
Oh,
cut
am
out
I?
for a second, Diane.
Am I back?
You're back. You're back. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah.
I have a lot of internet options here, so we can change
Okay.
all the way out here. Yeah. So, and something that's so cool is it's crazy, right? It's amazing. We learned that the Naha people vanished. And even up in those, even in those communities, like moving from one community to another in winter, even the local dialects are difficult, right? They're different.
Yeah.
And it's like a whole new thing. And then, so that was amazing when they started having these big gatherings and the Dene went down to Navajo Nation. And my master's, I spent a lot of time on Navajo Nation and realized they could understand each other.
Wow.
Right?
That's it. I remember I found that out at Standing Rock because I was in a Dene camp. Me and my sister were there writing articles. We ended up, there was a huge hogan that our friend had built. So they took us in a blizzard. It was all the Dene. And I was like, oh, thank goodness we're getting.
Yeah.
But that's where we learned, because there was a Northern Dene and I had no idea that there were the same. That's amazing to me.
Yeah, and it was amazing, right? The elders like, oh, okay, so that's where they went. It was amazing because
that's where they went.
Because so the landscape is very amazing, because the Arctic landscape is like a desert, right? And then there's the canyons. The Nahanni is like the Grand Canyon of Northern Canada, and then I just thought, like, oh my gosh, right? Like it's just it's just
this nation said that this group disappeared. They didn't know where they were, and they had reappeared in the southwest of the US.
And all these years later, they realize they can understand each other when even in next neighboring dialects. So anyways, I just find that is a
so
fascinating.
incredible.
That is a place really dear to my heart. As a second home, it was an annual migration for me, and a river that even spoke to me across the world in different places. When I was detained in Bangkok once, coming back from traditional, we were collecting medicinal plants for my husband's master's degree in East Timor. I was traveling back, had my passport and everything stolen from me on an airplane. I was detained in Bangkok, and it was that's another story, but it was quite an ordeal of like living in this basement, cell. And when I finally was able to, get to the Canadian Embassy and swear back in, and I came home with nothing but temporary passport. I had no luggage.
Amazing.
And I was on that plane after living through this, and I just felt really, I wasn't grounded at all. I was feeling like, I don't know if I'm going to make it home. Like, I just been through so much, and I thought I really had this feeling. It had brought up, and I was doing that. Like, when have I felt like this before? When have I, felt this unsteadiness? And I was grounding myself, and something that came up was, if I don't make it home, I will never guide again up north, because that was such an important part of and then I opened my eyes, and the woman in front of me was everybody on the plane was from Hong Kong except for me, right? And it was a Hong Kong newspaper that was being held up, and I was going to ask her if she could lower it so I could see the screen. I thought maybe I'll just use a visual and try to ground. And I noticed that the newspaper was a huge two-page spread image of the waterfall in the Northwest Territories of the Virginia Falls. This 92-meter water. I mean,
she was talking to you. She was there for you.
Yeah, and I was like, "You'll be back. Hey, look, I'm right in front of you." So that was really special. I read about that in this essay. So to go back to the question of, like, how much trauma, right, is like can be healed with simple somatics, and finding each little separation in us, and bridging it home with love. And, for especially, it really, I feel like the back to basics is we need to be in our bodies to heal.
Yeah.
And we got to find simple ways to embody, and to be able to stay with ourselves through discomfort, right?
Yeah.
And we got to do that together.
Yeah.
And if I can bridge home in me with love, and I can feel it to heal it, all the rage, all the anger, all the grief, all of it, it's very powerful. It's so powerful and chemical to do it together.
Yeah.
So I feel in these communities, I mean, everybody has intergenerational trauma in when we're looking at, like the epic intergenerational ripples of colonization and just like
On all of us.
completely the opposite of nature, right? And this runs so deep.
So deep.
And it's so important to do that together. I think
we need each other,
especially for youth that are disconnected.
Yeah.
Somebody's has been on the journey and somebody has healed from it and somebody's empowered and is now heart guided doing amazing work on it, right? From a heart guided place. Those people are already out there. It's already happening. And so it's so important.
It's already happening.
The fragmented places in me, in touch with someone that's already on the other side.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm going through. So it's like that I work with, I'm not, right? It's like, sure, I can hold space, but it's like in specific situations, we got to find that person, those programs, those organizations of like, who's already
doing it. Yes.
And is now, right? And is now, I always find trauma melts through to purpose.
Yes.
It's amazing. It's like somehow, somehow that treasure in your gifts, you're already doing it in some way, right? But somehow it just unleashes more of what wants to come through us to just be able to come through the way it wants to, and melting but every little fragment that we are able to love home, it seems to just give us back something, whether it's joy or whether it's our sense of humor or, whether it's our sassiness or whether it's our,
ferocity.
It's like our wild woman. It gives us back something that we disembodied, disconnected from because it wasn't safe at the time or it wasn't safe in our ancestry. And when we melt all the way through, it comes home, right? So it's not just about learning to, be with what's hard and increase capacity. It's about, opening up enough space and softening enough so that everything can come home. And we know how to do that. We know how to do it naturally. It's not a doing, actually.
We know how to do it.
The more this is holding space. And if the love and the space is real and we have enough vitality and we're training in our capacity to be with, and especially in support of another, it knows, it just knows how to come home. I'm blown away by that in the intelligence. So it's really about being and increasing our capacity to be in and be with and together. Right?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Everything you say this time in our last conversation just rings so many bells for me. I'm so with you. And there's so much that you're saying that feels so essential for our time. And, it feels also so much of what you say to me feels very chironic. It feels very chironic. And so I'm going to because we're going to complete here in just a moment, but I want to look at your
my chart.
Chart. Can you see your chart? Can you see it? Okay. Yeah, because I'm trying to remember. I've looked at it once before and it's like, where's her Chiron? Is she a chironic person? And I do see this Chiron by the South Node. And the way I was always working with that is to say that there's whatever is on your South Node, and it's within 6 degrees. So it's not, it's not like it's not a tight orb, but still it counts, I would say. So you come in with chironic wisdom from the past, you could say. And then it's also square. I think that's the main place where it shows up. It looks like. That's the main place where Chiron shows up. But it's interesting, yeah, because when I'm listening to you, I'm like, to me, it's like there's that soul retrieval process you're talking about so much. But in looking at your chart, I love the ascendant in Virgo, and just this focus on Virgo, and just the priestess that you are, the way of looking at that, the way that you're here with such a sacred work that you're here to embody and to deliver, and and that your life is ceremony, and the way you take the candle and you light the candle and you help women connect to that flame within themselves. So you're creating, you're helping to gather or focalize a movement in a community that is reverential, that is ceremonial, that is reconnecting to the earth. It's so beautiful that you're doing that. And I do feel it's like the Virgo in you is this clarity, like clear like a bell, kind of. I feel that often with Virgo, this clarity, this a feeling of impeccability. And just, but I feel with you so much this humanness, like taking the wisdom, and with your moon in Sagittarius, so coming in as such a wise woman from so many lifetimes, as a person who has a really deep kind of devotion to spiritual truth, and an old soul in essence, with Neptune, that would like add that kind of very big compassion and empathy. And then with all of that, and then moving it into the Leo sun and Venus. So just really shining your light, being a woman who's shining her light, and there's this light shining on your face right now, right? Being the feminine leader that you are, like we need women who are willing to stand up as leaders in a feminine way, generously sharing from the heart who you are. And I do see Leo in her essence is very generous and heart-centered, when she's really present. So, and also embodying sovereignty, it's interesting because I'm intrigued by the way that you're here to help. You're creating community. You're helping people learn that they can do it with others. And you're midheaven in Gemini. So too, you're gathering, you're networking, you're you're connecting this person with that person, creating that new kind of collective. You could see it there too. I love all of that. And then the other thing that I just want to say I love is, there's different is Jupiter really with the Pleiades, that you have this Pleiadian kind of orientation. Your dharmic path is aligned with the Pleiadian kind of heart-centered, deep love of earth, and wanting to help earth and humanity to really evolve, take it to the next level. So those are just some fun pieces of your chart that I wanted to tune into, to connect into the beauty. And just, I won't stop with that, but just, I'm always curious to see how it shows up. Oh my gosh, but there's just, there's so much that you're bringing in that feels so kind of next, that just weaves so beautifully. And I'm so excited that you're doing the work you're doing to create this living kind of sacred culture. And so I want to ask, before we complete, is there anything else you want to say to the people listening? Anything else that feels important for us to kind of remember in this moment to help people kind of move forward? I don't know, that's kind of a big question, but
yeah, no, I feel it coming through. I think it is really important, and in these times of, what we're trying to do is really, go sane and become whole, in a fragmented and insane culture, right? That's exhausting, right? We need to have a lot of compassion for ourselves. We got to have compassion for others. We need to have compassion for humanity, right? As fast as we have, have these crazy brains that have invented all these things, and remember that because awareness is increasing, that's how we even realize that it doesn't work on a planet. And that we are having these conversations. You and I are humans. People listening are humans that care, right?
Yes, right.
And so where we're still kind of shaming and othering, that's a mirror to know that we're still separating from ourselves. I'm still being hard on me. I'm still, and that's not the way to healing, right? So we want to be self-compassionate. Know that we're all, we're doing the best we can, right? And as we evolve and we increase our capacity to be with more, we open up for more flow to be able to, be of service. And that's really what makes people happy. It's not like what can I get, but what can I give? That's what, that's what all research shows. The happiest people are really in service, right?
Right.
And I think so to remember that, what can I give, and how can I give myself, right, to start what I didn't get, is really important. And I think the biggest piece is that no matter what, right, we have to find that masculine, feminine self-compassion of like, well, what if this is our final hour, we got to meet this place. Well, what happens to me when I realize this is my last week to live, right? Because we're talking about not collective death, which, right, is the same as individual death, right? Right. And do that's when feminine, masculine, that's a lot of the work that I do. I feel like it's really important because the feminine, the masculine is the yang is, in service to the heart, the feminine.
Yes.
So we need these things to be in balance. And so often they're out of balance. When they come into balance in a deep, compassionate way is when this is really it. So, if this is really it, right, then all of a sudden I feel compassion for me. I feel compassion for you. I want to make that phone call I should have made 20 years ago.
Right.
I don't have time for, I don't have time for the surface stuff anymore. A lot of my conditioning falls away, and what's real and true. That's when feminine and masculine come into, it's that heart guided action. I'm compassionate with you. I know what I need to do. Right.
Yeah.
So this is what we're facing with climate change, right? It's like, if this is our final moment, who do I want to be? And still, even if the whole thing's going down, right? If I was going to die tomorrow, right? I don't want to, all of my conditioning is going to fall away, and I'm going to find action. So if all of it ended tomorrow, right? If all of it's if the whole thing's going down, I still want to be a part of what continues on. I still want to be the love that was a part of the health of the system until the very end, because ultimately, what do we believe, right? Do we believe that that's it, that's the end, or do we believe that love doesn't die, or that something continues on, right? And I think that's really important to find our why, so we're not acting from anger or fear or fawning, that we're really like, we meet it full on, we meet it to melt it. What if it's too late? Feel all those things, and after all of that, can we be soft enough and open enough to be heart guided and just be a part of the health of the system, no matter what's happening? And we do know, I just one of the authors we just talked to has a haiku. I don't remember it in the right order, but it's like, it's about climate change, it really makes it simple. And she's like, it's real, it's bad, or something. But it ends with, and we can fix it, and some of she's a leading climate scientist, but is also an author. And I think that's really beautiful too, is like, it's therapeutic to do what we can,
it is.
And if we're in any other relationship to it that's fear-based, we have a responsibility to heal that,
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. I so love what you're saying. Yeah. I love that. All of it. And I just want to say too, what you're bringing up, I'm always looking for the threads that are weaving through this whole thing. And there's a thread of the near-death experience. That's the thread that Arun first brought up. It's like, we're in a near-death experience. And many of my speakers have literally had near-death experiences that woke them up. And I've been really pondering that. I'm like, wow, that's a really beautiful way to look at this. We don't know if, what happens, but the way we meet it is what matters.
Yeah. Oh, totally. And it actually is a beautiful way to get in touch with truth, right? Everything, basically everything dies, like ultimately everything that's important to me will end. I hope in the order I like, but we don't have control over all of that, right?
We don't.
And so this is where that kind of like, the showing up, the growing up, the impermanence is the permanent,
Yeah.
and the only thing that doesn't die for sure is love, right? That continues on. And so for me, that really is like a river that I want to be moved by. And I know that it's always trying to reach me. It's trying to move. It's trying to fill me. It's trying to move through me. It's trying to move me. It knows where it's going. It doesn't need my guide. And so the more that I can soften and open and melt in me, the more that I can be, I can empty myself and be moved by love. So I feel like it's so important. And there's this urgency, that's a self-contraction, so
Yeah.
it's still
Yes.
important to be like, right now, am I safe? It's so
Yeah.
important, right? Right now,
Right.
is this an emergency? And if it is, then those responses are right on. Like,
Yeah.
and
Right.
if not, then let's find a way to come back to the moment, so that we can be moved by love, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. I love hanging out with you.
I love hanging out with you too. So, do you want to tell people about your gifts that you are offering?
Yes. Yeah. I have a free gift I'm offering. I said at the beginning, we can't really increase our capacity to be with anything uncomfortable or difficult, which is the way through, right, to more love and health and flow, without vitality. If we're low resourced, we know it. We're irritable, we're cranky, we have no perspective. We just we can't be with it. So that's the biggest, reason why that was the biggest gift of Qigong for me in my life. It was life changing, was being able to just gather vitality, come into my body and open. And I had a teacher that, after all of that work with Dena Youth, I remember being so burnt out. I was on all levels, and I'd been out, and I just said, I'm so tired, I'm so burnt out. And I had a teacher say, well, you're out in the wilds, just, crawl into a bush and recharge. And he said, made it sound like open, and I'll be myself again. And
Right.
challenging my ideas of how long it's going to take me to vitalize is all a mindset.
The construct. Yeah.
Qigong is great for melting that construct of just like, it's embedded in the ancient movements. We're gathering chi 2 minutes at a time, 5 minutes at a time. I'm going to share that movement with everyone. However long you can do it, puts drops in your buckets, and ultimately that's what we need to get back to overflow. And then a feminine masculine, it's part one of a series I do of guided embodied journeys to grow awareness around our inner yin and yang. And if they're there, if they're communicating, if we value one more than the other, just to slowly start to just become aware with, self-compassion and curiosity. And then awareness is the ultimate universal solvent, right? Once it gets like water, it's just something that starts the journey of that bridging too of my inner feminine and masculine, so that my actions can be heart guided. So those are beautiful free gifts.
Well, thank you. Those are going to be amazing. And Diane, thank you so much again for coming on. It's been so much fun. I'm so glad you're out there doing what you're doing. And have a beautiful rest of your day, everyone listening.
Yes, thank you so much to everyone listening. Thank you, Tammy. This offering is so close to my heart, so needed. And I just want to honor you for being heart guided, and for saying, yes to what is needed, yes to what comes through, and calling all these beautiful people together, and
oh my gosh,
letting it flow. So thank you so much. And maybe soon we'll do something in person, right?
In person, I know. Oh my gosh, it'd be amazing. All right,
maybe right here at HeartWood.
Yes. Oh my gosh, incredible. All right, maybe we'll see you in Quebec. All right. Lots of love.
Okay, take care.